band and two dances that he played for. My mom was Lillian Loeffel. She worked for Taylor's. And I live in Utah now. I've been away for a long time, but have been very interested in local history for a long time also. My grandmother collected a lot of clippings and pictures and genealogy stuff, which my mother added to. And so I had several boxes like this of stuff, and that's how it started. And so I had to look through that, and then it just kept expanding and getting interested in more and more things. And so going beyond my own family to talking and learning about Canosa Lake. And now, of course, it's the 100th anniversary of the village of Jeffersonville. So that's the occasion where it seems appropriate to talk a little bit about Jeffersonville history. But we're going back before the village primarily. This is even earlier than that. And as you see, the coaching day was the highlight of the summer season here, not just for Jeffersonville, but across the county. There were many places that had coaching days. So we're going to go to 2 parades and a carnival tonight. So you don't have to spend any gas, drive anywhere. But hopefully you're not tired of seeing floats and decorated buildings by the end of the night. So what, and someone was just saying they had never heard of Coaching Day. I found this too when I was talking to another of my relatives, not you, who said,
anyone else here?
What is that? No, she's not here. She's not here, so I can talk about it. So, but she said, what is that? I never heard of that. So does anyone know what is coaching, or what would you think that would be? Transportation. Yes, sure. Yeah. So in those old days, just coaching was driving around the countryside and enjoying it, right? Driving was a big thing. But in this case, we're talking more specifically about like Cinderella's coach, where, right, these are decorated coaches that are, for looking and admiring. Okay. So Jeff was actually fairly late coming into having a coaching day or a coaching parade. As far as I can tell, Liberty was the first town that had coaching in 1893. And in the 1890s, this was actually very popular. You can see Liberty had 200 rigs in that parade in 1893. These were a big deal. And Liberty was one of the ones that pretty consistently had a coaching parade through the decades. Monticello was the other one. They started in 1894. Their parade was over 2 miles long. They claimed 7,000 people attended. And this then, after a few years, it became part of the county fair. And so that was one that pretty consistently happened also. And the president of the Agricultural Society that put on the fair said that this is going to be better than all the circuses combined. Which I guess it was, because he said later that nothing is more popular than a horse trot. But after they had their first coaching parade, he said, well, yeah, people like a coaching parade even better than a horse trot. We had, record numbers of people. So you can see these other towns around the county started having coaching parades also: Bloomingburg, Hurleyville, Woodburn, Roscoe, Rockland. And some of these, they just had them a few years, or they had them, a couple times. But Liberty and Monticello were the main ones. So now we're up to 1900, and that's, I did want to say too, this, you see this badge here, this souvenir from 1897 in Liberty. This was a year where they gave a souvenir badge to everybody who participated, rather than trying to choose winners with prizes, which could be contentious sometimes. So everybody gets a prize.
So was this coaching, I'm not from the area, is this basically a Sullivan County thing?
That's a good question. I don't know if
Because I never heard of it either.
how popular it was elsewhere. I mean, parades are still very popular around here. It seems to be a parade kind of an area. People like the parades. So, but I couldn't speak for elsewhere. Yeah. So 1901 was the first attempt of Jeffersonville having a coaching parade. And they tried this with the 4th of July celebrations. It was not a big success the first year. The organizers decided to go out at 5 a.m. with the fife and drums, since it was 4th of July, the Jeffersonville band and cannons to wake everyone and generate enthusiasm for the coaching parade. So that, I don't think that worked too well. Who thought that was a good idea? But yes. But they did get 1,000 people, and they had a balloonist, because there were things in addition to the parade. So they had a balloonist who went up in his balloon and then parachuted down. So that was the attraction for that year. But really, it was 1902 when the first major one started. You can see, though, there were cities, towns that even later started their coaching parade. Youngsville just had theirs for a few years because they started fairly late. And then Kiamisha had the great Chief Kiamisha in the Wild West show. And this Kiamisha statue apparently was huge and came through Monticello, so people could come out and see it on its way to the parade. And the Wild West show, they were looking for 100 cowboys and cowgirls to be in costume. This was kind of separate from the parade, but an additional attraction. So they, this was throughout the county. This was a phenomenon that was happening. All right, so a lot of people before that Jeff had a coaching parade, and even after, would go to these other ones, right? They'd go to Liberty in particular. And so we're going to first go to the Liberty coaching parade, which was even a lot bigger, as you saw, than ours. And these pictures come from the New York State Library in Albany. And Ruth Hugler is the one who did the research to see that this was the 1904 parade, because it was covered in the newspaper. So here in this slide, you can see the huge crowd there. And also, this is the reviewing stand up at the front, and this is a rig that's going by getting judged. So here's what the entries tended to look like. They had cars, even 1904. You've already got cars in the parade. This one is a boat with some attractive female sailors in it. Of course, there tended to be a lot of young women in these floats. I mean, it kind of looks like a clamshell to me, but I think it's actually supposed to be a boat. This one is a couple of children in a pony cart, and they often had, they had separate categories for prizes, and there often was a category for children, and they might be being pulled by a dog or a donkey, or a pony like this, and they would get their own prize. Here you can see, this is one of the prize winners. This was the third prize winner from the Swannanoa, which was a boarding house in Liberty. And here's a close-up of it. It's a Japanese theme. Everything on the float was Japanese except the ladies, and they looked it. And of course, there was a fascination with the East at that time, with Asia, kind of stereotypes.
The boarding hall, all boarding houses make their own floats.
Yes, it was very much focused on the boarding houses, and it was entertainment for the boarders. and they participated in creating these floats and rode on these floats a lot. So it was a very social thing, not just that day, but, you know, being creative and making the floats. So can you guess what this one is?
Was it Ross?
It was, I think it's the old woman in the shoe. With so many children, she didn't know what to do. Who are in the shoe there. Oh. Why did that go out? Here you see an old tally-ho stagecoach with women and decorations. And then here we have Uncle Sam riding and a flag, and patriotic themes were very popular throughout all these years. And at some points they had categories of prizes just for patriotic floats that had the national colors and the flag. And this one, if you can see it, is from the Pullman House right here. The Pullman House, which was another boarding house that I guess was where the Liberty Museum and Art Center is now. Now this one is from the Women's Christian Temperance Union. And it says, "It profiteth nothing to gain the world and lose our boys." And it also says there, "Prohibition brings prosperity." It did to the gangsters. But this is 1904, right? So this is long before Prohibition passed in 1920. And actually, there was a long history of a temperance movement here in Sullivan County. The Methodist Church was very much against drinking. I know my relatives back when were on that boat. Even there were speakers that would come around and, you know, talk about temperance. There were earlier societies than this Women's Christian Temperance Union. There was a New York Temperance Society. There was an Anti-Saloon League. And even back to, here is 1831. This is the Constitution of the Liberty Temperance Society. And you can see here, it's November of 1831. The members of this society, believing that the use of intoxicating liquors is for persons in health not only unnecessary but hurtful, and that the practice is the cause of forming intemperate appetites and habits. We do therefore agree we will abstain from the use of distilled spirits, except as medicine. Loophole there. That we will not allow the use of them in our families, nor provide them for the entertainment of our friends or for persons in our employment, and that in all suitable ways we will discountenance the use of them in the community. So temperance was very much, you know, through the decades was active. So now we're going to turn to Jeffersonville. We've been to the Liberty Coaching Parade. Jeffersonville joins the trend, and as I said, in 1901, you know, about a dozen rigs, so not a big deal. But 1902, we're up to about 30 rigs and 3,000 people, and you can see over the years this growing till 1906, 6,000 people.
Wow.
Can you imagine 6,000 people on the streets of Jeffersonville? Right? Yeah. It was no bigger then, right? So here's a picture of the parade going up and down. So it went, a lot of the times it went from the Lions Field around that block. So Calhoun Center Road, either up or down, and then Maple Avenue. It would come down Main Street as far as Kohlertown, Beechwoods Road, and come back. And it would make several circuits. A lot of times it would go up the Schoolhouse Road to Terrace Avenue, and then come down Center Street, and there would be a reviewing stand. They moved it a little each year depending on what business was kind of sponsoring it. But this was an example. And how about this? This is a tree here, but this is all people. The street is just absolutely full of people.
Did you know that last picture where it was? In town today?
I cannot answer that. Where is it?
Yeah, we're actually looking toward Youngsville.
Right.
And this is before the fire of 1918. So
Yes.
the whole left side of the page pretty much was burned down. So there is one building there that you might recognize toward the middle, behind that great hall. Oh, sorry, we're back.
I was trying to do this.
Is where the, no,
This,
behind the pole
this
there. That was where the restaurant was. And, well, the building is still there, but most recently was a restaurant. And a couple of the other buildings there are still standing. They've been refaced with other types of siding, but
Now that building, and you said that there's that, what they call Stella down here?
Stella's, yes. Yeah.
okay, so here's the crowd once again. And so 1903, both sides of South and East Main Streets were packed with far the greatest mass of humanity that this place has ever seen. At one time, the people and vehicles were so thick on South Main Street that a jam was caused, which took some minutes to move. In Jeffersonville, of horses, right? We're talking as well as cars. It was easily the greatest event ever held in Jeffersonville. And in 1910, Main Street was pretty well jammed for 3 hours, and there was noise enough to discount Coney Island. And so if you think about, people calling out, right, and yelling, and it's, I read, at least in Liberty, that parade, the boarding houses had yells. And in Liberty, there was a prize for the best yell. So the people on these floats are chanting for their boarding house, right? And all along the street, there are also things. So there's your dancing bears, your street pianos, your German tightrope walker. Not all in the same year, but there were booths all along the street with your souvenirs and food and drink, and then a lot of gambling. There were dice games along the street. In 1906, there was a fight where the men felt they were being cheated, and they started beating up the guy running the game. He fled into the Eagle Hotel where they tried to shelter him, but in the bathroom, the guys came after him, dragged him out. They got him out again, hit him until he could leave town after dark. So it was wild. Not to mention the drinking. 1907, about 75 kegs of beer were consumed, besides the large quantities of other wet goods. So there was a lot going on. Hasn't changed. So, but the purpose of it, again, was entertainment, but also business, right? So it was to advertise the area, that it's attractive for tourism, to get more business for the boarding houses, but it also benefited some of these local businesses. So here's the Becker store, which is selling colored crepe paper and bunting for Coaching Day decorations. This store was where George's Colonial Inn was, where it's now an outdoor store of some sort. This building burned in 1918 though, and all it was left was a metal shell, but it stopped that fire of 1918. This was the last building on the edge of it. They lost all the contents though. And you can, the signs there are for ice cream. It says Becker building across the top. They have candies. It was a pharmacy, also a pharmacist. And he also had stores in Hills Lake and Lake Honey. So that store was doing a good business. Then here's the H.A. Meyer store. We have received a large supply of bunting and other goods for decorating in the national and all other colors. Buy now before the stock is exhausted. And if you look at this car, which is absolutely draped in bunting, you can see that they likely will sell out, I think. And then here we have the Jeffersonville Supply Company, also selling bunting, any width, color, and price. Any orders placed with us will be strictly confidential. So, but, right, it was a competition, so this was a big deal. And sometimes people were unhappy with the results of the judges' decisions as to who had won. So it needed to be confidential so that you could have the best float. Yeah, and this is just an example on the left of the float with nose like
This is downtown. Where would that actually be? Is it downtown, Jeff?
this one on the right.
Yeah.
That's a question for Ruth.
Oh, okay.
That's why
It's pretty close to Kohler Town.
Oh, okay.
The road to North Branch.
That's the, for the post office.
That's where, right where the post office is.
Oh, okay.
It's
On the left.
across from Sonic Lodge.
Right, within the Sonic Lodge is upstairs. One on the left. Two on the left.
So in case they can't hear on the recording, it's the Sonic Lodge, which burned on the left. Okay, so it's also good for business because they had dancing at night. And this is the Eagle Hotel. And there is a little sign here that says dancing right here. This obviously is a coaching parade. And they're going to be selling food and drink as well, right? And they had dances in Union Park also, as well as sometimes they had a dinner there that people could buy. So you know, there was a lot of buying and selling, and that's it.
That is where the parking lot is between Tavern on Main and the post office.
Oh.
In fact, that
On
building
this.
is, became Selena's and Malali's.
Oh.
Building on the right.
Yes.
Okay, so there were prizes for the best floats in these different categories. So silver, of course, it wasn't real silver; it was silver plate, and the cut glass. Early on, those were the typical prizes. I don't know if you have inherited any of these. I certainly have. I think I have that very bowl that's right there. And it's for sale on eBay for $200. Not mine.
Oh.
No, but yeah, no. If you know, how often have you used anything like this? Right? I mean, it just points out the difference in the lifestyle of then versus now. Very, you know, so many parties, card parties at the boarding houses, lawn parties, a lot of entertaining, just constant social life going on, and needing these things to serve many people. But if anyone needs a glass bowl, feel free to let me know.
The bank gave them out years ago for opening a Christmas club, not the Crystal, but the institution, and so there might be a lot out there.
Yeah, yes, I don't think you could get it for $200.
No.
If you're buying, it's $200. If you're selling, it's $10. Okay, so we're gonna go now to the coaching parade in Jeff, 1909 coaching parade. And I believe this is August Neuberger and his wife Lydia Duttweiler. If anyone knew them, please tell me. But the reason we have these pictures, I have these pictures of the 1909 coaching parade. These are August Neuberger pictures. And David Neuberger and Lance Hewson went into his burned garage under the fallen timbers into the pile of ash where the photo albums were covered in black, and pulled those out. They are black, like I said, they are, your hands just are covered with ash when you touch them. They are sealed in plastic because the plastic melted. We had to cut open the photo albums, and you think there's gonna be nothing left in there. This picture, you can see, is burned around the edges, but it came out of one of those albums, and a lot of those pictures are maybe slightly damaged or not. But there's photo album after photo album that those guys saved for us. So we owe them a great debt of gratitude for these. Yep. So here we are, the Jeff Coaching Parade. This is being led by the Jeffersonville Band. Many towns had bands, and so they had different ones in the parade through the years. Calhoun Center Cornet Band, Delaware Cornet Band of Calhoun, the Mountain Echo Band. But this year it was the Jeffersonville Band. You see, there's also a bicycle in this parade. Oh, and I forgot to mention the importance of the weather in these events, right? So that Liberty 1904 parade, the year before, it had been a downpour, and it ruined the decorations. People scattered. They finally had the parade kind of in the drizzle, and it was not expected they would have one the next year because the people said, I will never enter this again after my experience this year. And so it was surprising that 1904 parade went on. Another year here in Jeff, it was 100 degrees in the shade. So it was a challenge. Another year they said it was the perfect year because, of course, we're talking about dirt roads, as you can see here. And think about the dust that this is kicking up. So it had rained a day or two before to dampen down the dust, and then it was a nice day for the day of the parade. So that was ideal. This year, 1909, again, rain was threatening. In fact, it had rained for 2 days straight, and the parade had to be postponed. So this is after waiting for 2 days, and how do you get the word out to people that it's going to take place? So it wasn't quite as big as normal or as they hoped for, but it did go ahead. They only had about a dozen floats. They had a baseball game in the morning, but we're going to go directly to the parade. So here it is, and here's another view with some of the floats that we'll take a closer look at later.
Whoa.
Yes, this one was a lot of work, obviously. Another good source of income for those stores with their roses or paper flowers. Here's that very fancy parade going along in front of the Calhoun Creek. That fence is still there. This is an example from a boarding house, the White House. So these are boarders that are filling that, I'm guessing. And it says White House, but there was the Thomason's White House, but there was also Mall's Sunny Hill White House. So not sure which one that was from, one of those two. This is a top wagon, and you can just see that everybody there has a badge. So this was a year that you got a participation badge. Some years only the ladies got them, but this guy has one. So I don't think they're winners. I think they just got a badge. There's some ladies in their car, a little bit decorated. So you're seeing that there are horses and cars both in this parade. This may be Emil Round and Florence Rapp. Anybody knows them? I'd love to know if it is in fact. They won one of the prizes for a one-horse race. What month is this? August. Yeah. So horses and cars, not only in the parade, but on the roads, right, at this time, together. So this is a little bit later, 1914, but this was vehicles passing through Jeff one Saturday over 12 hours. There were 267 cars and 225 horse-drawn vehicles, a total of 492. So almost the same number, a few more cars than horse-drawn vehicles at that time. But there were accidents galore in this period of time, mostly the fault of the cars scaring the horses or running them off the road or whatever. And one of the most notorious drivers was Otto Hillig, who was the photographer in Liberty. This was his studio in Liberty. And there are numerous newspaper comments about incidents that he has caused. So here, this is through Jeff. Otto Hillig of Liberty flew through Jeff Tuesday with his 60 horsepower machine. When asked how the roads were, Otto said he didn't know, as he only touched them in big places. Otto's becoming an expert chauffeur and hasn't run over anyone in some days. He avoids this by keeping up in the air because he flew. He's famous for flying. Here's another one. Otto Hillig of Liberty. Oh, no, sorry. Yes, Otto Hillig of Liberty flew through town Sunday in his auto, leaving a cloud of dust that obscured everything for a mile and moving everything that happened in his path. He flattened out a chicken for Pat McDermott, came darn near killing a dog, and run the record man into the bushes down the road. Otto Hillig, the Liberty photographer, sailed through Jeff on Sunday afternoon in a 60-mile-per-hour car. Everyone with a horse gave Otto and his auto the full road. So the horses and the cars did not mix very well. So here's another one-horse race. This is one of the prize winners. They won third place in single race. What do you notice about these two? They're called lollipops. This is the lollipops. Do you notice anything about them?
Somewhat masculine.
They are masculine because they're men. Yes. These are two men in drag. John Loeffel and Charles Schroll of Thomason's White House. So something you might not expect. This is people in blackface. There was a category called the grotesque category or the comic category. And blackface was very popular through the decades in all these parades. And so these guys, they might be the threshers, they might be threshing, but yeah, unfortunate, but true. And it continued to be popular. This is 1924, the St. Peter's Minstrels in Liberty, the Liberty Theater. It was bought by a vaudevillian, and so he brought in these minstrel shows. You can see the blackface over here, again, stereotypes. And even into the 1930s, this is local people putting on a show at the Liberty Theater. And this is under the direction of my grandfather, Henry G. Loeffel. I'm sorry to say. But he did a lot of local talent sort of thing. So here's another one in blackface. This is the Pickaninny family. So the children here on the cart are in blackface. You can see this is pulled by oxen. It wasn't all horses, they were still using oxen at that time. And this float is E.A. Brand's Pickaninny family on Filing's ox cart. So this may be E.A. Brand. I'm guessing it is. Edwin Brand. He was an undertaker in town. He was an organizer of this parade over the years. He was a big supporter of it. He had originally been a teacher in the common schools. Then he bought a furniture store, or started a furniture store here in Jeff, and then the undertaking business. And he was alive till 1955. Here's an ad from a little period. Brandon and Sons. So he sold the monuments as well. He's an embalmer. Yes, Gene Erdman's father. Yes,
He lived very close to the Catholic Church.
across from the Catholic Church.
Where was that road before that? Looks like it's church or something to the right, or a schoolhouse.
It looks like a lot of these were opposed. I mean, this is not in the parade at the time of the parade, I don't think. You know, several of them are like before they left for the parade. So I don't know.
Some back road.
No.
So here's another one. Again, that patriotic theme with flags. Okay, now you are the judges. So we're going to look at the floats, and so pay attention and think of which one you want to award first prize here. So this is Uncle Sam, Miss Liberty, and the 13 original states. So you can see in the front, here's New York, here's Georgia, here's Delaware, here's Uncle Sam, and this is Miss Liberty. Okay, so think about them. Here we have I Love My Money, but Owe You Title. So these are American heiresses, and they have, you know, a lot of new money, but no status. So they want to marry a European who is the king or has some money. And this was, again, interesting to think about the period of time, right, after the Gilded Age, where there was a lot of new money in America, and so pretty clever. Here we have a May Day party. So we've got the May pole, and we've got a king and queen. Here's the king, here's the queen of the May Day. Little different approach with the way that's so tall. How many of you have ever been to a May Day party? I would have no idea. You have been.
Well, the maypole made out of
Yeah.
wash line that went around.
Okay.
We used to do that in school.
In school. Okay, all right. So kind of, you know, a thing that I don't think we do so much anymore. You know, it was-
It was, I wasn't pretty good.
We have school days, so the kids with their books and the teacher there. And we have the Swiss dancers. And you can see where this is next to the Purple Victorian. Or the Purple Victorian. So these danced throughout the parade, I do believe. And you might think this was from Swiss Hill Road, but I don't think so. In a later year's parade, they had the Swiss dancers float, and it's from a Youngsville boarding house called Sterling, Fred Westfall's boarding house. So there we are. You have 5 choices. So
How did they have a grading system, like the most decorative, the most unique idea? I mean,
I get it.
it varied from year to year what their criteria was. they tried to have judges often who were not from town,
Mm.
so that, or they, they were boarders from elsewhere, so they could be more objective. There were, like I said, there were different categories, like a 2-horse rig, a 1-horse rig, but floats, I don't think it was a particular.
Because if you're basing it on the work that a person put into the
Right.
float, that's different than the unique idea.
Right. So you are free to use your own criteria. Okay, so how many for number 1? Uncle Sam, Miss Liberty, and the 13, or do we need to review them one more time? All right, let's review. That number 2 is the heiresses. Number 3 is the May Day. Number 4 is school days. Number 5 is the Swiss dancers. Okay. So how many for Uncle Sam? Can you keep count for us?
Yes.
That's 4. 4 for Uncle Sam.
Okay.
The heiresses. 2. Okay. Mayday. Interesting. 6. 6 for Mayday. 7 for Mayday. School days. 1. Thank you. And the Swiss dancers. That was 1. Isn't that 2?
Sure.
Okay. All right. So here. Here are the real winners. May Day was number 1.
Oh, yeah.
I'm surprised. What was it about May Day?
It looked like there was a lot of work.
It was different.
It was the biggest.
Yes,
tallest.
yes, okay.
And they're all in white.
Second was the heiresses,
Nah.
and third was Miss Liberty and the Sam and the 13 original
The
slaves.
heiresses were comical. It was a parody
Yeah.
comedy.
Okay, so, well, good job. I would not have picked Mayday myself. I don't like the heiresses. I think that's clever. That's, out of here. All right, so now, I mentioned that other towns had coaching parades. But towns that had lakes instead had regattas, events taking advantage of the lake being there. So Canosa Lake had a carnival starting in 1907, which is what this picture is a picture of. Very similar concept though to a coaching parade, just on the water. Decorated, the whole town is decorated up. This is the Fern Hotel, and this is the Canosa Lake Hotel here. So downtown Canosa Lake. Here you can see the beautiful dresses. They have this gazebo at the end of the lake here, and this is the Moultrie Homestead. This is the Moultrie Homestead.
Was coaching.
Now, where is that actually?
That the Moultrie
Yeah,
Homestead is still, it's where Craig Love
Oh,
is.
that's what I thought.
It's next to Snedeker's garage.
Was coaching day a different day in each township, or was it one day?
No, it was random.
So that people could go to other
Yes,
towns?
yes, and they do, yeah. So here's, they're literally floats floating on the water, right? Same idea, decorated floats. That's another example. So this is looking across the lake, and then this is the Wilmot Vulture. This one's a paddle wheeler. This is the Fern Hotel, all decorated up with the national colors. So I suspect this is Coaching Day 1907 as well. And of course, the Fern is now being torn down. Will be gone. This was the heyday. And here's the Canoes Lake Hotel, kitty corner across. This building is no longer there, but it's where Snedeker's garage is. And you can see the Japanese lanterns, all the greenery they use a lot of. And in the front here is a band. This is likely the Home Circle Orchestra, which came on summers, and they played at the dance that night. So there were dances at night, same as with the coaching parades, and at the Canoes Lake Hotel and at the Fern. And then this was the highlight in 1907. This was a bareback horse race that these three young men participated in. And one of them is William Lucky's Black, and I can't tell because the colorization which one that would be, but his son is riding that horse. One is John Bosley's horse, ridden by his little nephew from Washington, and one is Behrman and DeLapp's horse. They were the owners of the Canoes Lake Hotel, ridden by Pete Erdman. After 2 heats, Lucky was given first prize and Bosley second. The expert riding of the Bosley lad caught the crowd, and it's believed that with a better track, he would have sent his horse into first place, as the finishes were close and his horse was handicapped by being crowded in the ditch all along the course from the church to the square. So, Craig Lucky and Kip Lucky's grandfather is one of those. So then they had, in the evening, they had a parade through town. They had torchlight parade and lantern parade on the lake, which must have been really beautiful, and a dance. So very similar to the idea of the coaching parade at these other towns. But, just because, and they had a lot of athletic contests too. So they had boat races and, swimming races and foot races and all that sort of things. Okay, so what happened to the coaching parade? There were doomsday predictions for many years. Questions about whether it was going to be successful this year, whether it was going to be able to continue. 1913, coaching day in Youngsville's going the way of coaching days in all other places down the toboggan due to waning interest among the home people. 1916, coaching business is pretty well frazzled out here. 1917, coaching days are doomed. However, they still had some successful ones, and this did continue into the 1920s, and even a little bit later in Monticello, well, late 20s, early 20s in Jeffersonville. So what happened? Why? 1924, coaching parade in the morning didn't amount to much. These things are passe in a little old town where time is money, and both are held too tightly, too highly. In 1925, even as a person was once judged by his horses and rigs, so a man is now judged by his automobile. And while it was once a dream for a working man to own a horse and rig, it is now possible for nearly every man to own his car. So it was the car that doomed coaching parade, because you could do more exciting things, coach, go wherever you wanted, and go further and do more and find other entertainments. So, but it was 30 years of coaching in Sullivan County that this went on, from the 1890s to the 1920s. So it had a good long run. So I hope that taught you something that you didn't know before. Here are some people who contributed some of these images and other things. So thank you to them. Thanks for having us here at the library. And then I do hope someday there will be a book called Canoes Lake, the corner where we all meet. This is what have been working on for too long. And here's an email you could use if you have any information, stories, especially documents, original documents, pictures that you would be willing to share. I'm here through Monday. and I would love to get together with you, or you could, you could email me. So that's it, and if you have questions, I don't know if I can answer.